You know, it's funny. I remember the first time I spoke to you. I know you do too.
Yeah. No, I didn't think college. I wanted to go and talk to somebody who had been to the schools that I was looking at. And for college, I had spoken to Bruce Beck, and he said, I can tell you what it's like in the 70s, but I know a guy who's currently there, and he gave me your phone number. And I was just trying to figure out if that was going to be the right place for me to become a broadcaster. And every question I asked you, you had the answer that I wanted to hear. And so it just made me feel like that was the right place to go. And then when I got there, it was you did all the heavy lifting. You just literally, I followed whatever you did the next year. You were a year older than me. You were the sports director your sophomore year. I became the sports director my sophomore year. You did football your junior year. I did it my junior year. Basketball, same thing. So I literally just followed you everywhere you went, and then you left, and I had to figure it out on my own.
But you know what, though? There was a tradition to it all, right? It's when I got to campus, I looked at what everyone previously had done. And then you come to Ithaca, and we always had an example to follow. And I think the amazing part now is I'll talk to students who are there, or you talk to people who went there before we did. And we all kind of come to this common place of we're doing the same thing. Some of the shows are still named the exact same thing. A lot of the coaches are still there. And I think that's pretty cool because, you know, I'm sure you remember the college search, and everyone said, well, go to Syracuse, go to Fordham. But there's this other small school where you can get there and put your hands on everything right away. And remember, you called, and I was kind of confirming that because I was living it, but it really was true. It's just a great place for the right student. If that's what you wanted, it was a great place to go to school.
My dad's a sports writer, and I had been tagging around with him to some baseball parks, and I wound up watching a Yankee game sitting between John Sterling and Michael Kay when they were doing the radio at the time. And I enjoyed it, thought it was a great view, right? And talking to my dad after the game, the conversation ultimately led to him letting me in on the fact that they got paid to do that, that was their job.
Which is a good perk.
Right. And I was like, wait, hold on a second. This could be a job that I could do? And ultimately it led to this is what I wanted to do. And it became, you know, the interesting thing about my dad is that he, instead of saying you're 9 years old, you know, we'll figure it out later, he sat me down and he's like, well, you're going to want to go to a good broadcasting school. And he mentioned Syracuse. And I mean, this is to a 9-year-old kid.
Right.
So it just kind of stuck with me. And I just started building towards that.
I was 10, and I remember, you know, always a big sports fan growing up. But at some point, you start to hear the voices and realize they're part of your experience. They're part of what makes you a fan. And I wrote an essay in 5th grade. It was a writing contest, more like you had to pass that part of it to get to 6th grade. Okay. And the question was, what do you most look forward to doing when you grow up? And I said, I can't wait to be sportscaster calling the final out of the Yankees winning the World Series. Because it had been a while at that point. It was 94. And that kind of gets you in the mindset of, okay, maybe this is a dream. Maybe this is something you want to follow through. Here in New York, we were so spoiled growing up. I mean, 3 hockey teams. You look at the announcers for the Yankees and the Mets. You think of Marv Albert's influence and how that's trickled down to guys like Mike and Ian Eagle and Kenny, obviously. And being in that seat as a kid growing up, to have that sound coming into your living room every night, you'll learn a lot just by watching or listening. And I think for me, those guys in this market had a huge influence.
No, you're right. I mean, for me, on the hockey side, we've got Doc in New Jersey. We got both Kenny to a certain extent, but Sam forever, and Howie Rose. I mean, those guys on the hockey side of things were everything for a young broadcaster. I couldn't learn the wrong way. No matter what channel I watched, no matter which game I watched, you were getting one of the best at their trade. So, you know, this was the perfect market for all the reasons you mentioned to watch sports because it's the top. And so when you grow up, I didn't realize until I moved away that not every market is like this.
Right.
You turn on a game and go, ooh, who is that?
Yeah, there's 2 and 3 of everything.
Right. But, you know, you go to other markets and you be like, oh, okay, that's different.
Right.
But here it's just everything is top of the line.
Barzell scores! Devon with the overtime winner!
It had been a long process where, you know, through interviews and auditions and I mean, really, it took a whole summer for me before I found out it was actually August 4th. I can remember that because it's my wedding anniversary. It was the same day. And so I was actually, I was working with the Utica Comets at my desk, which I'm not kidding, was in a trailer upgrading the renovations in the arena.
Windows?
Yeah.
Okay.
They'd been broken a few times, but yeah. So I was sitting at my desk, and I was waiting for the call because I knew it was down to, it could have been yesterday, it could be tomorrow, but it's going to come. So my agent's the one that called me, and I saw it was him. And so I walked out of the office because I'm like, this is a big moment one way or the other. It's either the best news of my life or potentially the worst. And he called and just, said that they had offered me the job, and I literally couldn't speak. Like, I just didn't know what's next. Like, you spend your entire life chasing this job, and then you get it. Now what do you do? So I didn't call anybody. I didn't tell anybody right away. My wife, who's a nurse, was working about 10 minutes away, and I literally just got in the car and drove to her office. And she just knew. And so that was the moment that we got to share.
Yeah. No, I was August 4th, same way.
RJ, yes, and the foul. The switch to the right.
My agent called. He kind of delayed it a little bit. He built it up. I'm still mad at him for it. But to hear, you got the job, you're the voice of the New York Knicks, and you kind of have to take that in. And I just kind of stayed silent for a couple of seconds.
I remember when news came out that the Knicks job was open because I texted you immediately, and I said something along the lines of, that has to be your job.
It's so cool to see what you're doing, and it's a great shared thing we have going here in New York. I didn't know it at the time, up in Ithaca, but those moments working with you made me better, and it puts a smile on my face to know that I was working with someone like you in college, and
I'm Brendan Burkey.
you're a colleague, you're a friend. Here we are at MSG. The pieces align, and it's I was so happy when you got the job, and I think by the same token, it's just really neat to share this with you.